broadcast truth and advice from the furry community from a small comics box in secret. This is Furry Frequencies, your favorite furries at the highest frequency. I'm Lifty, and joining me on the podcast this evening is Silox.
What's up, everybody?
And we are glad that you are joining us this evening on YouTube. Tonight's podcast, we are talking about this age and you need to and to talk about that. Go ahead and say hello.
Hello.
And do you want to just go ahead and introduce yourselves to the furry community before we get started? Just say a few words like, how many fursuits you have, how long you've been in the furry community, what you think about being in the furry community, etc., etc.
Okay, I'm KodaKrome. Started off as a gray fox, basically 2 heads, 1 body that I made myself. Well, the second head I made with a lemon brat head base. Then, 2019, I bought a cougar fursuit from Arvin's Lair, and I just got a tiger fursuit a couple months ago, and I'd have to check. I can't remember the fleeting fact.
All right. Oh, okay. So welcome, gentlemen, to another exciting episode of Furry Frequencies. And so I just want to get the ball rolling with a little bit of background on why we're talking about this about this topic on our podcast. So a few weeks ago, we had Furry Twitter talking about this one tweet that I don't even care about anymore. But it was a tweet where somebody was talking about the older you are in the furry community, the more creepy you are. And a lot of people got, especially anybody over the age of 30 in the fandom. And we later found out from the interaction on furry Twitter about that there are actually quite a lot of very prominent furries that are over the age of 30. And them and have a lot of influence in the community. So we just want to take out and how we feel as we get older, and the furry community is younger and younger. Let's go ahead. So you want to start off?
Well, I know some people will look at older furries as being creepy and, undesirable and just weird and out of their element. And I think that's a huge misrepresentation of a lot of older furries. And it's not fair that they get stereotyped and viewed as such. They talk about the whole creepiness factor. Well, there are a lot of creepy people under the age of 25 as well, who in this fandom, who do a lot more disturbing stuff than those above the age of 30. And it's funny to me. It's funny because the person who made this claim is, I believe, they're either 18, 19, or they're probably a minor. So it's like, why are you, who probably has done nothing whatsoever to contribute to the fandom at all, making broad generalizations about someone based on their age? Ageism should not be accepted by anyone. I don't care who's doing it. It's disgusting and has no place in this fandom.
Yeah. And also, okay, so yeah, I found the tweet. I'm not going to name names because I don't really want to give this dude any free publicity, but I know who they are, and the furry community that has seen this tweet, they know who they are. And so I'm just going to read the tweet. It says their quote unquote is definitely a creep component if you're in the fandom beyond your 20s. And I say this as someone who's in his mid 30s, but depends on your level of involvement. The less involved you are, the less creepy you are. And this was actually directed at in the UK called Wolf. Very adorable. If you haven't seen him, he's like an orange fur with finger hanging over his ear. He's an adorable fursuiter. He's a sweet person, and he really should not be subjected to any of this ageism that this dude is just throwing out there wantonly for, I guess, some clout. And I want to just throw it out there that I'm a furry over 30. Cody, you're a furry over 30. Silox, I forget what age you are.
I'm 29.
Okay, so does this apply to you?
Close enough.
Yeah, okay, there you go. You're a furry 1 year younger. You're younger than us, I guess.
What?
I don't know. So we're... Oh, I did?
Yeah.
Oh, well, all right. No, we were just postulating on now because it happens to furry when they turn 30.
Oh, they go free death.
So what?
Serious.
On a 30 day, we put on our first, and then suddenly we just die in it.
Yeah,
like
that's what happened.
We just,
I think.
We just let it, and then our suit just falls.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure that's
yeah. So, what do you think about this? Because you've been a fan for quite a long time. So, we want to know what you think.
Okay, I've only been active in the fandom go on 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
First, I went to the Atlantic Regional Fest in October 2015, and I was not the oldest fur there, and I was in my 40s.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm not even sure how many, but I know two of them were older than me. At least two were older than me. Third one, I'm not sure of his age. And the two that were in their 40s, I believe, one even had gotten her first suit yet. She got a month later at the short went to football to his, I believe the first her first appearance in fursuit.
Yep. So let me see. So let me just say this: have you ever been told that you're too old to be in this fandom?
Not already. Apparently, a French grandmother had a problem with my age, but that's not all I did about it here.
No, it was Stylix. Have you ever been told you're too old?
No. No. Besides the half-hearted jokes of old men and stuff like that, no, I've really got that. I would say that might be the average for history for us is in the 20s, but I think every year that numbers gets lower and lower and lower. So, because I'm still 9, and the average age is probably like 26, 27, don't tend to really get that. Though I'm changing.
Yeah, I'm also under the average age of fan is getting younger. Let me see. So I've just pulled up a Fur Science survey regarding age. So when it comes to being furry, so let me see. Okay, so I'm guessing one. Well, okay, I really don't know how to read this. See, I don't know. WS11, W12. Some Fur Science actually label this properly, please. I mean, I hate to call somebody out. I mean, these are people in science that are supposed to know how to properly label their data, and this is garbage. But let me see. I'm guessing AC12 refers to Anthrocon 2012, and they said in Anthrocon 2012, the average respondent was in the furry community for identified as a furry for 8.6 years, and they first identified as a furry at age of 17.2 with a range of 6 and 8.6 for how many years they were identifying as a furry, and between 16 and 72 years for the age first identified as a furry. So that's actually pretty young. I mean,
it is pretty young.
I died, I think 5 years ago. So about 20. So what age? So at what age do we all like join fandom? Anything?
I became involved in the fandom in my 40s, but my interest predates the term furry.
Yeah. Okay. And then let me see. So we have also another table here for science. The average age in years of furry participants. Okay. I can't.
Well, so while
damn it. But anyway, it says
while
here the average age.
Person Go ahead. Yeah.
You got.
No, you intended to decipher the data I was going to mention when I joined.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
No, I joined in 2015. So whatever 2015 minus 1990 is, because I'm terrible at math. I'm sure you at home can figure that out. Let's see what. Let's see.
Yeah, you're here. 28. You joined when you're 28.
No, 2015 minus 1991.
Oh wait, 2015. I said
yes.
2019.
No, really 2019. Oh God, Lifty.
So you're
wow.
24. So you're 24.
Yes.
I don't know. I missed. You cut out. Then I misheard you.
How would? Yeah, I joined the fandom, but I had a fursuit before that.
Yeah, when we're just podcasting from a tiny Connex box in secret, all kinds of things can happen with our feed. So I want to also talk more about this data that I found about the average age of furry participants. So congoing, the only data that I'm finding is that across 3 different studies, 24, 27.1, and 26. The range is between 24 and 27. Online, it's 23.3, 26.8, 27.6, 31.2, and 28.3, which gives a range between 23.3 and 32.1. So, and then they go further. The term muzzle is sometimes used by furries who have been in the fandom for significantly longer, 12.3 years versus 6.2 years on average, or who are older than the average furry. 42.2 years old on average.
Oh, so that's the age. It's not 30, which is sort of the standard that a lot of furries, claim. It's
that's actually, I think that's like 2011, 2012 data. I don't know what this SS29 means. First Science, clean up your data. God damn it. This is
You probably picked a random page and then didn't look at the
date. I study data, and
Uh-huh.
this is triggering me. Like, God
Good.
damn it.
Good. I'm glad it is.
I'm so triggered right now.
I'm glad it's making you upset.
So I have a 2020 sample of age ranges based in the furry community. Of course, the highest bar is 18 to 20, which is a little over 20% of the furry community, and then it just declines from there. And then the average age is 42, which
What?
yeah, they said that older than the average furry, which is 42.2 years old on average. That's comprising like about 2.5% of the furry community, just that segment, 42 to 44 years old. And 45 to 47, that's roughly 2%. 48 to 50, that's about 1%. 51.3, around 2%. I'm just kind of like reading this graph and making some inferences. So this isn't an exact science here. And then 57 to 59, there's like barely any people there. 60 is about less than 1%, or 60 and over, I'm sorry, is less than 1%. So you see, on average, so they did say that gray muzzles do differ on a few variables. On average, it took gray muzzles much longer to discover the furry fandom after developing furry interests. 9.5 years versus 4.6 years, likely a product of internet accessibility. Gray muzzles are 3 to 4 times more likely to self-identify as Therian, and gray muzzles are likely to have an interest in role-playing activities. So, Coda, what is about what they're saying here on the survey? Do you agree with some of that? Do you disagree?
Without seeing it, it's hard to visualize. I'm not typical than most, I think, in my age group, but I'm not one for role playing either.
Okay.
Which, can I just say, Coda, that's a good thing. Not to piss off RP people, but yeah, good on you for not doing RP. It's very cringy.
Oh,
you're gonna have a bunch of role players sending us angry letters about how they're offended by you now.
Being full.
Not you, Coda. Silox.
Being full ace, it makes it difficult to pretty much to comprehend the role playing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I mean, that's fine. There's no, excuse me. There is nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
I'm just, I'm just, it's just interesting, just how they come up with this.
So let me ask you this, Coda. Do you feel, by being in this fandom, do you feel like you're younger than you actually are, or do you feel exactly your age?
It's hard to answer. It's easier to forget your age until you go to do something and realize you're not that young anymore.
Oh, I feel that. I do think that there is kind of a, I don't know if disassociation is the word, but people in general in this fandom, it's like they feel, it makes them feel younger to an extent from a, I don't want to say emotional or a mentality, not mentality, but or maturity, excuse me. I don't want to say that it makes them feel younger from an emotional or maturity standpoint, but it does, I guess, make people feel younger by being in this fandom. You tend to sort of forget that, oh, hey, I'm 27. What am I doing with my life? Oh, hey, I'm 19. This is, like, I do think that's at play, but when we remind people of, oh my gosh, you're XYZ age, that sort of veneer of just wears away. And people start to realize, oh crap, I'm this age and I'm doing this. It's strange. And I will say that a lot of gray muzzles and those who are of that age, I do notice that a lot of them have been in the fandom a long time. Not all, obviously. Not everybody is the same. Your mileage may vary, but I do notice that a good chunk have been in the fandom for a while, and they know the ins and outs, do's and don'ts, unspoken rules, what have you. And one of the good things about that is you can talk with them and get a history of the furry fandom that you otherwise wouldn't be able to get from someone my age who only joined in 2015. So people who rag on Greymuzzles and those of a certain age, well, we wouldn't know what we know about the fandom, how it came to be, the people in it, if we just said, hey, Greymuzzles, go fuck yourself, you're not welcome. So I do think Greymuzzles definitely have a place in the fandom. And like someone else mentioned on that Twitter thread, without Greymuzzles and those, y'all wouldn't have events to begin with, because you sure as hell are not allowing a 23-year-old to start their own convention. We've been down that road before, and it turned out to be a disaster.
So, there's another question that I would like to ask Coda. Do you actually appreciate being called a gray muzzle? Like, do you appreciate that label for older furries?
It never bothered me.
Okay, cool. I mean, I've not really been called a gray muzzle. Even though I'm already past that threshold where I could be a gray muzzle. But I've never really been called a gray muzzle. And, I really don't care if people call me a gray muzzle.
I first heard the term gray muzzle from gray muzzles that were older than me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was nice, running into people near my age and older. Because I'm not sure I can't think of the word for it.
Uh-huh.
But basically, you don't feel alone or out of place when you have a nice handful of other furs your age or older. And yeah, I can sit there at a convention, sit there talking with furs in their 60s and furs in their 20s all at the same time. I know at least one fur who if I remember right, he went to his first anthropomorph meet, I believe, in 1969.
Uh-huh.
And he wasn't even the oldest one at the convention.
Nice. Let's see. Now, so of course the furry community, it seems to be getting younger and younger as more people get exposed to furry content in many ways. Social media apps that can connect younger people to the furry community. I know I don't really like interacting with young people on Instagram because some of them are very iffy.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm just like, oh nope, please no. And but also there's Furry Amino, there's Fur Affinity, there's all kinds of other sites like there's also furry Twitter. Furry Twitter is always hopping, and younger people are using these apps to get acquainted with the furry community and get involved. And so the finding somebody who's way younger than you in the community just increases over time. So of course we all are getting older and older each day. But do we feel like we're being pushed out of the furry community by the younger furs? Like, does that ever?
I've not exactly felt that.
Okay.
And one thing I have seen is the hate some of the younger furs face. A lot of the furs that are under 18 tend to get quite a bit of hate. So if you're not in that like 18 to 25 range, some people tend to have problems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm not in that bracket anymore. Yeah, I feel self-conscious based on what I'm seeing from younger furries, and I feel conscious about my age because I'm out here with these 18 to 5-year-olds. They're outshining me, and here I am just like sitting around scratching my balls every day, talking to a bunch of people that may or may not care about what I'm saying, and I'm doing this for the furry community. Why do it?
Definitely makes you start to second guess yourself and compare yourself to others. The more older and younger the fan becomes, because there's such influx in of younger and younger people, and some of them have their shit together and think about it. Others don't, and they and people plug them for that. And it's weird. It's a weird dynamic. But you see that from younger people, and it makes you feel like you're now, or that you aren't, you don't matter so much because you're 29 or you're 33 or you're older than that.
Mm-hmm.
And no one should be made to like that. Being fandom should not come down to 3 things: the amount of art you purchase, the fact you have a fursuit, and how old you are. And I feel like it is starting to get to that point where how old you are plays a part. And I mean, I'll be honest. I know I talked to a lot of people. Most of them are in their mid to late 20s.
Mm-hmm.
But every year you encounter a lot of people who are younger than that. They're in their low 20s. They're in their early 20s, or they're 19. I do my best to not really interact with minors or those even 18 because I just don't want to be put in an awkward position. So it's certainly an interesting phenomenon to see. I'll tell you one thing though. As time goes on, it gets harder to date in the fandom because a lot of these people, they're in their younger 20s or their mid 20s. There's less people in their age group, and the ones that are, they're either not doing interested, or they're dating someone outside the fandom, or they've already fucked somebody in the fandom, and they're happy. So for that, it sort of makes it it's sort of one of the more difficult things to deal with as you get older.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that set of as you get older, it gets hard to date, and it that it's. I know that's supposed to just kind of. I know that I know that it gets harder and harder the longer I go, but it's just like, man, I feel like wanting to date. It's I don't like a relationship, you know, the older I get, and I don't know how. Um, yeah, but
So speaking of relationships, this brings up something. This brings up another good point. Well, question: would you say that your age makes it harder, easier, or no noticeable difference when making friends in this fandom?
I believe it's making it hard.
Okay.
I really believe that I'm pulling out old people. Unless the older thing really, I
Gotcha. What about you, Coda? Have you noticed? Would you say it's easier, more difficult, or really there's no change in how you've made friends at someone of your age?
Kind of made friends with people of all ages.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's hard to get close with anyone because of distances, but yeah, there are furs at cons that I'll hang out with at times, and yeah, they their ages will range from their teens to their 60s.
No, I've noticed that age has not been an issue for me. Like I said, I have friends who are as young as 20 and they go up to their 50s. So that has made no issue for me. Maybe as I get older and the longer I stay in this fandom, that might start to become an issue. But for me personally, I've just haven't had any issue with that. But I do know obviously some other people have. And you saw it on Twitter in the comments that some people left that yeah, it's more difficult for them to interact with and befriend those who are young because either the younger person may have preconceived notions and may assume that the older person only wants to talk to them for sexual reasons, or there may be some other dynamic at play, or they just don't find the older person interesting. They may assume that they have nothing cool to talk about, or that they can't really fit in with the current I don't want to say time period, but the current culture that is being permeated by this generation and Gen Z. People may assume that, and they may say, "Okay, well, I don't really want to interact with, or talk to, or befriend someone of this age because we might not have anything to talk about." And they may be right, or they may be wrong, and they may be missing out on what could be a great friendship. So,
yeah.
I'm not going to be ignorant and say that doesn't happen, because I know it does.
So while you were talking, I was browsing my Twitter and I saw one of the friends that I follow. I'm not naming names. Just tweeted about this date, and he said it cuts, and it's like, and yeah, it does, because first of all, we all get older, we all age different rates. A lot of us can look older without actually being older. A lot of us can look younger but actually be older than what we look.
Me,
I know
unfortunately.
for me, I look 7 years what I didn't even. I don't remember signing any deals with the devil to be this young, or to look this young. I certainly don't feel as I think I am. But anyway, my point
now,
is
could you
everybody.
repeat the tweet again?
Geez, I just it just refreshed, so I couldn't. I couldn't. Hold on a minute. Let me see if I can pull it back up. But oh, there we go. Yeah. So this friend just said that this was the first time they've had their age used as a problem, and he says that fucking cuts. Yeah. So my point is that we all age. We all age at different rates, and if you are talking negatively about somebody based on their age, or you are saying that you don't want to associate with people based on their age, then, well, because they're older, then you're gonna have a rude awakening one of these days. When you're waking up, you're 30 or you're 35, you're just like straining out of bed, and you're talk to. You're the people that you think are interesting or cool or whatever, they're way younger than you and they have no interest in you. This is going to be a wake-up call for you. Like, and I'm just saying that it's not right. It's certainly not right and not fair to dish on people just because of their age.
Yeah.
Just because older. And a lot of older, they have a lot of fan involvement. Like Uncle Kage, he's into the fan than I have. I mean, in the furry documentary by Ash Coyote, I mean, I've seen videos of him. He had hair, he had these big glasses. He was really strapping young buck. And this was back when I was just a kid, and he was getting involved heavily.
As I recall, I think he was at the first convention.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, Uncle Kage was.
Yeah, but I mean, I know that well before I even knew what a furry was, he was already involved with the furry community. He was already involved in Anthrocon.
He was probably one of the first I'd seen on TV, and that was probably back in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And back then, it's easy to find the fandom now and to join with the internet. But back in the early days, a lot of things were all done mailing and paper, and if you didn't know somebody in there, you didn't really have a way of getting into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember when
I was first introduced to the fandom near 20 years ago. I was invited to a meet in DC, and I'd lost the info.
Uh-huh.
Otherwise, I'd have probably been doing this for the past 20 years instead of 6 years.
And younger furries out there, because I'm and just no. Don't misunderstand me here. Don't get it twisted. I say that so many times on this podcast. We should start putting out shirts that say "Don't get it twisted." Don't get it twisted about what I'm saying to younger furs. Younger furs can definitely be in the furry community. There's plenty of space for the younger furs to get involved in a safe way. What I'm saying is that there's plenty of space for the older generation too. The people that we shouldn't shit on them, and we should definitely not make them feel excluded, or that we shouldn't be pushing them out just because they're older. You're going to get older sometime too.
And it goes fast.
Yeah, it goes fast.
God,
Your
yeah,
youth goes
it
so
does.
fast.
It does.
You don't. I'm telling you, younger furs, there will come a day when you will suddenly wake up. So it comes at you fast.
So, an example you might have is years ago, I was in the car club. I was one of the youngest members of the car club with one of the oldest cars. And my car was probably about 75 years old at the time. It's 101 now.
What car is this? I'm interested.
The Model T.
Oh, geez.
Oh,
yeah.
shit.
Okay.
And back then, I had friends in the club. One of them was in his 80s. A couple of friends at the car show were in their 80s and 90s. If they're still around, the one would be probably around 120 now. Another one, 113. Izzy, probably 108.
Yeah.
But even still, some of the club rules excluded cars of a certain age, and that created generation gaps with a few clubs. And once they did away with the clubs started dying out, and once they widened the requirements, you got the younger people in, allowing the club to continue. When I first started going to the shows, most of the cars you'd see were 1930s, 40s, and 50s. Now you go to the shows, and half the cars there I remember when they were new.
So, do we want to discuss if there will be a generational gap in the furry community that will be opening up soon?
I mean,
I kind of feel like there might be.
There'll be gaps, but the interest of the characters bridges all ages. We've had anthropomorphic characters in art for longer than people are still alive.
that goes back thousands of years, honestly.
Yeah, and we were looking at what you might call as early fursuits, pantomime actors from like the 1880s to the 1920s, and a lot of them with costumes that resemble current fursuits.
Yeah, I saw some of these pictures from that time period. It's funny. It's funny that you call them pantomimes. Because we were making jokes when I saw them. It's like if somebody were to be transported from that time period into like Anthrocon 2019, they would look around at all of the fursuits and just go, "How do you do, fellow pantos?" Like what?
But there probably will be a generational gap. I mean, it's going to happen. But I also think the one thing that will keep that we all share is that we have an interest in anthropomorphic characters. And so that's something that won't sort of make the divide unbridgeable, if that makes sense. So, like, it's coming. Like it'll be here eventually. I mean, the age that people, because of the internet and because of how mainstream and accepted this has gone, you are seeing younger and younger and younger and younger people get involved every single year. Like every single year, the average age goes down every single year. To the point where one of these days you'll see the average age be around 21. Like it's gonna happen. I don't know when that'll be, but it'll happen. And none of us will probably still be in the fandom at that point, but it'll be like that. You'll have a subset of furries who are older in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, but you'll have an even larger subset who are in their 20s, late teens, early teens, even tweens. Like it's all because of the age, all because of the internet and how accepted and mainstream this is going. And the one thing that will bind us together is that we all like anthropomorphic animals. If you had told me that there was nothing that binded us together, then yeah, that would be a huge problem. And then I'd say, well, the fandom would just die out at that point, or it would
Well, I
be
mean, if there was
just
nothing,
very.
if there was nothing binding us together, then what does the furry community? What is the furry community at that point? Like, if there's nothing binding us together, we're just a bunch of independent people that suddenly like fursuits. I don't get it.
You would become the brony community, which is
What? Hold on a minute.
Yes, and I say now. Let me explain what I mean by that.
All right.
You would become a community that is based on one thing, and once that one thing goes away, you start to die.
Okay.
And the fandom would die a very slow death. It would become.
Well, it would fail to be a community if you admit that the furry community doesn't have anything binding us together, then the community fails to be a community. Just full stop.
This well, I don't want to say goes away, but it. I don't want to say goes away, but it certainly just people break off and do their own things, and maybe there's other stuff that bind them together. That's not necessarily furry. It could be LGBTQIA plus. It could be, hey, we're all young professionals in IT, and we like watching cartoons. Let's do you would see it splinter off into different interest groups, but it would revolve around, I guess, liking something that's furry related. But there would be no central theme that holds everybody's interest. There would be a bunch of them. But you're not going to see that. But what you will see is definitely a generational divide. But
yeah. Let me see. What other things do we want to talk about regarding this topic? Because I think we're running close to time.
Yes.
Yes.
But no, Koda, I do want to ask this. You've certainly been way more, I guess, involved with Maryland furs longer than I have. And I've always wanted to ask this: what was the first meet that you went to with Maryland furs, if you can remember?
It would have been a first skate, and I think it was the first skate, probably a November first skate, November 2015.
Hold up, November 2015. Let me, because I'm on FA right now. I do think that picture is actually up in the gallery.
Yeah, the group photo, depending which one you look at, all you see are my ears.
So unfortunately, they numbered these back then. The first skate one. okay, this is going to be interesting. Okay, so it is the first one 5 years ago. Let's see.
Yeah, the first holiday party was 2015. I was at that, and it was the last first gate that Rocco the Fox was at.
Oh, there it is, the first annual holiday party. Hey, there you are, right there, front and center. And that was in 2015. And fast forward to 2020, and this thing is still going on. So this event, for all you listening, was not started by someone who was 18, 19, 20. It was not started by some minor who begged their mommy or daddy to give them $5,000 to, convince the skating rink to let them rent it out for a bunch of costumed people. This was started by someone who was in their 30s, who is a veteran, who is, I think they're in the Coast Guard. Don't quote me on that. If I'm wrong about that, Kit will tell me. But my point is, this event was started by someone who, by furry definition, is a gray muzzle.
Yep.
Someone who wanted to start something for the community so others, regardless of how old they are, how young they are, what they look like, where they're from, could come together and make friends and meet people. And it still persists on today. Of course, we haven't had one since 2019 for obvious reasons, and it'll be back. But my point is, before we all run out and shit on older people because they may not be attractive, or they may be creepy, or they may remind you of your dad or whatever, don't do that, because you're selling them short, you're not valuing their worth, and you're ignoring all the stuff that they've done to make this a great fandom. And I also want to say this. We also shouldn't do reverse ageism against those who are younger than us. And I want to preface this by saying, no, I'm not telling you to go out and befriend minors. That is a bad idea. First of all, please don't do that. What I'm saying is, don't make snap decisions and stereotype those who are in their, who are 18, 19, 20, 21, and exclude them because they're young and they may not know anything, or assume that all they care about is having sex, because that's not true. We shouldn't be in the business, regardless of how old we are. We shouldn't be in the business of this fandom of separating people based on their worth, or how hot they are, what they own, or how much influence. We shouldn't be able to do that. We shouldn't do that. So we need to really cut down on the ageism that is prevalent in this fandom.
Yeah, and as I just mentioned a little while ago, that it's still happening. As we were recording this podcast, it was happening to a friend of mine. So yeah, like you said, Silox, we do have to cut back on the ageism. We have to cut back on a lot of isms in the furry community. But certainly, I don't want to feel like shit just because I'm getting older, and this brings me enjoyment. This is a hobby of mine, to be involved in the furry community like this, to have a podcast, to be a fursuiter, and it's certainly not something that I just want to cut down just because a bunch of younger furries don't like that I'm older. I mean, it goes both ways. We older furs certainly do not want to push out the younger furs just because they're young. So why are the younger furs pushing older people out and making them feel like shit because they're older? We got to understand that a lot of the older furries that are still in the fandom now, they brought a lot to the furry community, and without them, we wouldn't really have much of a furry community anymore. So we do have to be thankful that they're still there, that they're still involved, and that they're still doing well.
You don't want to scare them away from the fandom, because they are the future of the fandom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but at the same time, we're not going to bend down to the ageism that they might exhibit.
Right.
Yeah. But anyway, we are running close to time, so we're going to go ahead and call it a night from here. Thank you very much, Koda, for joining us on the podcast. You've been a great guest.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Yeah. And if you like what you hear, please feel free to follow us on Twitter at Furry Frequency. And also, please like, comment, and subscribe to our videos on YouTube. We should be rolling them out every week, but we are still trying to get into the swing of things. So it might be a little slow at the moment, but so just bear with us. We will try to make this a weekly thing. And be on the lookout for other things that might be on the pipeline from Furry Frequencies in the meantime. I definitely want to get shirts going that say, "Don't get it twisted." I don't know who would buy them, but I do want to make some merch.
Get it twisted. Wow. Already thinking about selling merch.
Don't get it twisted. Don't get it twisted. Well, Silas, don't get it twisted, okay? Just don't get it twisted.
The fact that
it's good advice.
The fact that he thinks anybody would buy a shirt that says "Don't get it twisted" says a lot. But I'm not one to judge.
Dude, you have any idea how many people would just buy a shirt that just says in Helvetica font, italics, in a red box, Supreme? Like, seriously, that's all it is. It's a shirt that just says Supreme on it. Now, I'm not trying to shit on the brand because it's a very successful brand, but you got to start somewhere. So why not? Don't get it twisted. Let that be our thing that we can capitalize on. Because we say it all the time on this podcast, and yet people still get it twisted and rage on us. Where some people need some kind of I guess reading comprehension, listening comprehension, because they keep on accusing us of saying things we don't say. But hey, the life of a podcaster, am I right?
I still can't get over the fact you want T-shirts that say "Don't get it twisted." But
I mean, why not?
This is America.
Why not?
This is America.
It's a land of a free. It's a land of a free. We can make money off things, but we can make money like this.
Look, if anybody buys that, I will eat a bar of soap. Full stop. So,
well, you got to make the shirts first.
I ain't making shirts. You can buy them on t-shirt.com or something. But
T-Turtle?
No, T-shirt. But
Redbubble?
No, t-shirt.com.
I mean, I could probably, if you give me some time, if there's an actual interest in T-shirts and other merchandise for Furry Frequencies, and you're listening to this podcast, please let us know. Please let us know on Twitter. Hey, we want Don't Get It Twisted T-shirts, or hashtag Don't Get It Twisted. I don't care. Just let us know. Hey, we want T-shirts. I would buy a T-shirt. Even if it's just one person, I will make a T-shirt for just that one person that wants a Furry Frequencies T-shirt. I will print out one T-shirt for that one man or woman or whatever you identify with in 2021. I don't care. If you want a T-shirt, please let us know.
Oda, anyway, thank you for coming on and dealing with whatever Lifty is. I don't know at this point. He's something. But thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Anyway, this has been Furry Frequencies signing off with Lifty.
Xylox.
KodaKrome.
Yep. Thank you for listening, and we hope you have a wonderful evening.
Good night, America. Okay.
Good night, Arlington.